Welcome. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. It's a 7:30 show, another show on a Wednesday. Those that are brand new to the network, my name is Quentin McDougald, and I am the founder of the Nothing But Web Entrepreneur Network. As you have seen with the different promos, I came back with another heavy hitter. I have Mr. Motivation, Kendrick Moore himself, as you can see right there in the video. Give him a little wave, Kendrick, while you're there, so they know you're live. There he is right there. Perfect. All right, so for those that are brand new, I usually start off every episode with my version of a bio. So I'm going to give you the introduction to Kendrick Moore as I met him. So when I first met him, not only do I have the network, I also have a web design business consulting firm as well. So when I first met him, he was referred to me to do his website for More Motivation Basketball. So we started working. Things didn't kind of work out. I'm not sure what happened. I think he ended up getting someone else to do it, but it's all love. It's all love. Okay. So ever since then, we stayed in communication. So if you know him personally, you will probably know about that text that he sends out about his podcast, which you'll probably talk about those. Because I usually get those on Mondays, the different thing to go check out his podcast. If you have not checked out his podcast, check it out. I'll plug it right now. So little do we know that we would circle back months later in person. So I'm at Slade Middle School one day, and I'm walking through the hallways, and who do I see? Kendrick Moore. So, we look at each other. It's always awkward when you meet people, people from the internet, and you don't really know them. But I felt like I know them because for 2 years now, we've had constant communication with each other. So to meet him in person was a pleasure. So we had a conversation. We started talking about his program while he's there. He's here to uplift youth, not only in the classroom, but off as far as in the basketball arena too, which he'll talk about as well. So he was coming in there working with a specific group of students. He was coming in there each week. The students were loving him. I would dip out a little bit just to hear what he was talking about, just to get information. But then from there, I reached out to him. I said, hey, I love what you're doing. Come check out the Nothing But Web Entrepreneur Network. So he came. He came a couple different episodes. He gave me feedback. And then, of course, I slipped it in. Hey, you want to host? Want to present? And then at first, everybody's schedule gets busy. But then I got him. So without further ado, is Mr. Motivation, Kendrick Moore himself. I'm a solo Mike. The floor is yours. Welcome to episode 19, starring Kendrick Moore.
Hey, I appreciate that introduction. And yes, as he said, like we've been in communication, without ever seeing each other face to face for probably close to 2 years. And it started with that introduction of someone, putting us together in terms of creating a website. And as he said, and I guess I'm not ashamed to say it, my intern, who we've been talking about for the past, probably the past couple of days, in terms of what she does for the More Basketball Clinic and More Motivation. Quentin, she's the one who did the website as well. So, he was just asking about, who runs the social media sites, who does the basketball stuff. Like that's her. She's committed to the brand. She's committed to the mission. And I have a ton of people when we talk about commitment that have really bought in and made a commitment to, and when I say commitment to the brand and commitment to the mission, is really changing their lives and having an opportunity to listen to those More Motivation podcasts, locking in every week and intentionally getting themselves to a better space. Like that's the purpose of it. And that's why I'm here today. Like even when you asked me about being a part of the show, and, I get a chance to come on here every now and then. I come and check out what people are talking about. And he has some amazing people talking about different aspects of entrepreneurship. So when he first asked me, my thing was like, man, like, I'm not sure how I'm going to incorporate what I do, right? Like, I'm not sure how I'm going to incorporate what I do in terms of the actual show. Because everything I do is about giving back, like, right? Everything that I do is about trying to inspire and empower others. Everything we do at More Basketball Clinic and at More Motivation is about empowering others, right? It's about personal development. So I'm thinking like, man, how am I really going to incorporate that message as it pertains to entrepreneurship? So what I was thinking like, man, and I'm not really one to plan. Like it's hard when I have to plan something to talk about. And that was kind of our conversation just leading up the past couple minutes. Like, man, like plan, that's hard for me. I have to just kind of get to that space, feel it out, and just go with what I know. But what I do want to start off with in terms of the entrepreneurship, and well, if you're talking about building it, how to become a better entrepreneur, like I said, the different angles that people have been taking, like just imagine this and think about it this way, because a lot of people, they try to be entrepreneurs, right? Like, and when we talk about entrepreneurs, it's about owning a business, right? Like owning a business. What I want to deliver to you guys, the most important part to me is about being an entrepreneur of your own life. People try to go into being entrepreneurs of a business without first being entrepreneurs of their day-to-day activities, right? They don't own their own space. Like they don't own the different things that they do every day. Like they don't own their own lives. So they want to go into owning a business without owning their own lives. And when I say owning their own lives, I'm talking about the different disciplines that are required, right? The different disciplines that are needed on a day-to-day basis. Like anything of that sort, like really understanding what that looks like. Like if I want to be the best entrepreneur owning something outside of myself, I think the best way to do that is to make sure I'm in complete charge of what I do on a day-to-day. Like understanding those disciplines, right? Understanding resiliency. Like you got to understand resiliency with yourself before you can take that to an entrepreneur and be the entrepreneur of a business. Right? You got to understand full commitment that it takes to have success at something before you take that into owning your own business. Like the different disciplines that are required, right? The responsibilities that are required. So that's my message coming in today. And I'm just going to break down a few topics, some of them that we talk about on our More Motivation podcast. Different things, like I said, like I know everyone on here is not necessarily an entrepreneur. They might not be looking for entrepreneurship, owning their own business, but the different things that we engage in apply to all areas of life. And that's why I think it's so valuable, even in this space, to have an immediate impact if you just buy into the messages. So one of the first things that I want to talk about is kind of one of the things I just mentioned a second ago, is about the commitment piece. Right? And one of the topics or headliners for today was starting your day with dedication and ending your day with satisfaction, right? That's one of the More Motivation podcast topics. That's something that I spoke about, brought it to when I was a keynote at a gala in Springfield, last year. But that's so very important to understand. And we can encompass a lot of things into that, right? Because it has to do with major planning and major work, right? Start your day with dedication. Like you got to commit to something each and every day. Like start your day with dedication and end it with satisfaction. Start it with the planning process, right? So do not start your day. Like this is one of the topics we cover as well. Like I said, as I'm going through this, I'm just going through my mind like, wow, these are different things that motivations and things we talk about in our leadership programs. Don't start your day until it's finished, right? I was on with my brother the other day and we was talking about these different journaling things. And we always talk about like, we won't start it until we got a complete idea of what we're going to accomplish that day. Like, right? We commit to something, like we start it and dedicate every action towards what we have on that list. And we don't begin until we get everything down. And what's included with that is the task that we want to accomplish, but also the different things that keep you away from that task, right? The different distractions each and every day, right? So we have to be intentional about our actions and dedicated to it. And the thing that scares people, guys, is the work. So if we want to talk about how do we relate this from our day-to-day to entrepreneurship, like entrepreneurship becomes very difficult if you're not willing to do the work. Like you can talk all you want about owning a business. Owning a business is harder than actually going to work for somebody. When you go to work for somebody from 8 to 4 or 9 to 5, you're just actually physically getting up, going to the job, accomplishing the immediate task that they ask you to do, and then you get to go home. And it's only based on if you do it well or not. Understanding entrepreneurship, understanding your own life, understanding your actions each and every day have to do with everything that surrounds ownership. Like you got to own each and every action. Like from the time you wake up, like it's all about you. Like it's about the work. It's about the different things you dedicate your time to. So that's how that stuff relates, right? Like, so if I want to be an entrepreneur, like I said, I got to take ownership of my life. I got to take ownership of the things that I want to accomplish every day. I got to dedicate it. And the dedication is the work. The dedication is the work. It might not be 8 to 4, 9 to 5. By the end of the day, in order for you to have satisfaction, you might be at that job all day. You might be working all day. Like you might have to dedicate way more hours than you would at that job that has this time constriction around it. So that's what we want to understand when we say, man, like, okay, so how is he bringing this motivation to this entrepreneur website? Like we talk about ownership and everything that I'm talking about. When we talk about personal development, it's about taking charge of your own life, like being an entrepreneur of your own life before you do anything else. Right? So starting your day with dedication, like being able to fully commit to something, like fully commit to it and then getting after it. Being able to fully commit to whatever it is that you journal before you start it, like you finish on that journal and then you get after it. Like that's the task, like that's taking ownership of your day. Like that's the thing that relates directly from your life to having success in that entrepreneurship, owning your own business. So I just want to start with that part of it. And I just want to see if anyone has any questions along with that. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you have any questions at any time, you can let Q know and he'll, between each of these segments, he can chime in, ask the questions. But if you guys have any questions about that topic, or any other topic that you think is relevant to this, to this segment here, feel free to put in the chat. He'll ask, and then at the end we'll actually have a question and answer segment as well. So does anyone have any questions about that topic?
All right. So one question for you: can you walk us through a few things that you do personally to start your day?
All right. So my immediate action is to make sure I get in a good space. Like I'm very intentional about getting into a good space. So what my normal schedule would look like is I'm up at like around 3 o'clock. So I'm usually at the gym by 3:30, 3:45 in the morning. It's not necessarily the going to the gym, but what it is I know that's where I'm able to get into a good space, because my intentional behavior is to make sure that I'm in a great space for the people that need me throughout the course of the day. I understand my purpose, and I understand that people rely on me every day, and I have to be at my best. Like, so going to the gym, in my mind, I'm starting to listen to things that get me into a good space. So I'm very, very intentional about my behavior, right? So whether it's motivational things, whether it's some good music, whether it's a couple songs that I listen to for inspiration, like those are things that intentionally get me into a good space. And depending on what time of season it is, depending on what time of the year it is, and when I get back from the gym, breakfast, whatever it is, then I'm off to work. And I know at work, with working with youth and working with adults, like I gotta be at my best. Like I'm very intentional, but I gotta be at my best. And those are the things, just think about that, right? Like, how do I get myself in position to be at my best, especially when I'm dealing with and serving people? Like, that's what entrepreneurship is, like being able to be in the best space to serve people. Like, that's why we're put here, to not just take, but to be able to serve others. Like, that's why all of us are here. So as it pertains to entrepreneurship, just imagine being at your best space, understanding that trials and tribulations are going to happen each day, but I'm in a good space to be able to handle it. Not saying I'm perfect, not saying it ain't going to happen, not saying it's never going to be a hard time, but I'm in a space to be able to handle it. And if I know I didn't go through my morning routine every day, those little minor things might affect me in a major way. So when the major things come around, I'm not in a position to deal with it, right? So I'm very intentional about starting my morning, right? And the journaling either happens at night or once I get back from the gym before I head off to work. right? And then throughout the course of the day, I'm handling my business, doing whatever I have to do. I usually have an action-packed day. As you mentioned, it's sometimes after work, it's heading over to Slade. After work, it might be heading over to Weaver, dealing with some of my after-school programs that I host, my Leaders of Tomorrow program, or Young Men's Leadership Academy, like any of the programs, Elite 10, and Athletes for Action. These are some of the different groups that I host. Then it's usually off to basketball when I'm working with youths as well, coaching in stressful environment. By the time I get home, with the missus, we're back home trying to make dinner. When you hit me up a little while ago, she comes from the, made dinner, like getting ready to kind of get on this podcast, get on this forum and do what I have to do before I wind down and start concluding my day. Because each and every day I'm intentional about it. And each and every day I'm able to check that box and say it was a successful day.
Perfect. Next segment.
All right. So like I said, I'm excited because my purpose here is to empower others. So I'm hoping that you guys were able to take something from that. Another big part of it, guys, like I said, and we had this list that was created, but another big part of it to me, when we're talking about, wow, like how do these things relate on this entrepreneur website, is this topic that we spoke of called rather versus should. Like really understanding that, like rather versus should, like rather versus should, it has to do with the choices we make every day. It has to do with the decisions that are in front of us every day. Rather versus should is a personal thing, because are we committed enough to make sure we do the things we should do, which aren't always fun, which aren't always enticing, which aren't always the things that brings us immediate rewards or gratification. The should are the things that are difficult. The should are the things that you have to grind long-term, like really understanding that, versus the rather. The rather is usually the easy route, right? The rather is usually the easy thing. The rather is usually the fun, right? So rather versus should, like that's one of the biggest things that kind of stands in our way. And this is why the journaling is so important. Like when we start our day with dedication, right? And we get to that journaling portion, when we figure out what we're doing throughout the course of the day, remember I said we also add the distractions throughout the course of the day as well, right? Because the distraction could become so normal that we don't even know when they show up. They just take hold of us. Next thing you know, we're spending 2 hours on the phone when I could have got 2 hours of work done. That's what distractions do, like, right? So whether instead of going to the gym and being there on time, like a committed workout, because I'm trying to get better, because I want to be a Division I athlete, instead of being in the gym for 3 hours, it might not even take us away for the entire time. It might take us away for an hour and a half. But now I just lost an hour and a half toward the things I want to do. Can you imagine that? Like you add up an hour and a half each day over the next weeks, the next couple months, in terms of the business that you want to create. Like it might not sound like a lot, but if I'm awake for 16, 17, 18 hours, an hour and a half adds up. Right? Because I'm sure you're going to be doing something, but an hour and a half each day that you can commit to doing something, that adds up. That adds up over time. And we have to make sure that we understand that, like how much that rather impacts us. And this is one of the strongest ways the rather impacts us, because if we're not fully dedicated and committed to something, because this is one of the issues, a lot of people talk about what they want to do. A lot of people aren't fully committed to it. They can talk all they want, right? They can say whatever their actions show, right? So even if you are doing the thing you should be doing, but your mind is consumed by the rather, when you're doing the thing, you're still not giving it 100%. Right? So even if you choose the should, but the rather is consuming your mind, you're doing the should while thinking about the rather. So you're not giving the should 100%. again, we're talking about discipline. So discipline is not just showing up. Discipline is doing it right every time, like being great at it every time, like giving your best at it every time. Like that's what discipline is. So I could still be doing the thing that I should be doing. I know you've probably been there. I know I've been there. You probably know people that enter those spaces and they're where they're supposed to be. People that go to work, they're where they're supposed to be for that 7, 8, they're there. Kids in school, they're where they're supposed to be. Sometimes their mind, though, is not there. They might be thinking about something they'd rather be doing, right? So even though you're in that space sometime, you got to make sure that you're fully committed. So the should, like, because this is an amazing thing when this happens. When this is why I say my purpose is to empower people. Like my purpose is to give back. Like why I'm here is to serve others. Like that's just why I'm here. My purpose is to see people do better. So my purpose and what I do every day and what I should be doing aligns perfectly. So that's easy for me. That's easy for me. You know what? Because a lot of people talk about entrepreneurship because they just say they don't want to work for somebody. They don't even want to be an entrepreneur. They're just saying they don't want to work for somebody. Like, or they're just tired of doing the thing that let me just do. That's not should. Right? You're not going to give, I'm just going to do this because I don't want to work. That don't mean you're going to give 100%. That's why you're failing at it. You didn't commit to these personal development messages where you're giving your best to yourself every day. Like you got to understand rather and should for yourself before you understand it when that entrepreneur thing comes up. Like, and this is one of the reasons why people have such a difficult time, I think, when they starting business. I'm not talking about the technical stuff that you don't know about. I'm talking about the things that you do know about. And one of the major things is neglecting these personal development messages. Like we won't hop on a call and get some personal development where we understand it can impact every area of your life, but we'll just jump into the deep end without a life jacket. There's one thing about taking risks, but there's another thing about not being properly, educated and understand like what's going to actually give me success. Right? So that should part, like when they align, like when you decide on that entrepreneurship, I'm hoping it's a passion for you. I'm hoping it's something that you love doing. I'm hoping it's something that you want to be there. Right? I should be doing this because this is why I'm here. Plus, I want to be here. Now, all of my energy is dedicated to this. So when these trials and tribulations come up, it just seems like, wow, like that's nothing. I love when people ask me, like, it's like I can have a very hard day. And people ask me, how you doing? I'm like, I'm great. Like, I'm excellent because I know why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like my should aligns directly with what I do every day. I love what I do. I love it completely. Right? So it aligns directly. So there'll be nothing that can take me away. Like there's no rather that can take me away from the things that I love doing. Like, and I'm a fully commit to that, right? And I think that's a big part of it, that rather versus should, like being able to make that choice, being able to make that decision so we can understand fully like what that's supposed to look like.
All right, you have 2 questions. So the first question,
all right.
How do you find the motivation to start your day each and every day? How do you find that motivation?
How do I find it? As I mentioned, I think for me, finding that is very easy because just as simple, I'm fully under the understanding that this is not about me. Like I fully understand that I'm here to serve other people. Like I know that. Like, and so when I'm in that space, like I've been doing that since high school. Like as soon as I got the opportunity, like when I graduated from my high school, Hartford Public High School, when I went to the University of Missouri, my first intention was to give back. And I think that just comes from a family thing, like, right? Everybody in my family, like, we are kind of created that way to give to other people. So my mom, my dad, like, it was ingrained into us early to give and to make sure the people around us are doing better than us. Like, I'm okay when people around me are doing better than me. Like, that's a great feeling. So that just naturally motivates me. But the discipline and the routine, like, that's something that I had to work on a little more than just being motivated towards the things I love. Like, that's easy because I know why I'm here. I know what I should be doing. That's easy. More importantly to me, though, was the discipline that was required, like, right? The discipline that I needed, like really understanding how to build that routine, getting into that good space to make sure that I'm at my best for those that do need me. So, like, to me, it's an easy thing. And that's why I'm so big on, if it's an entrepreneurship, if it's working for somebody, whatever the case may be, if it's about your own personal development, like, find what you really passionate about doing, right? You shouldn't have to force behaviors. You shouldn't have to force work, right? Find something you're passionate about doing, right? And open yourself up to it as well. Because the thing you're passionate and love doing, you might have something that's a little more financially lucrative that might be pulling you from the thing that you're passionate about doing. So while you're spending a lot of time focusing on the thing that might be more financially lucrative or rewarding to you at the end of the day, it took you away from the thing that just brings you joy every day, the thing that you can get up without even a hesitation and get after it every day. So, but you got to find that particular thing for yourself. And I guarantee you, like, the motivation to do it, remember, there's a difference between motivation and discipline, but the motivation, the joy to get up and do it, oh man, it'll be easy, or at least easier, and so very rewarding.
I'll save the last one for at the end. You can keep going.
Okay. You said you're gonna hold off on that one?
Yep, I'll hold that last one. It's a good one.
Okay. Another big topic that I wanted to discuss, and it wasn't one of the bullets, if you got a chance to kind of read the little bio and everything. This is an important topic because a lot of times we go through life, and obviously everybody on here is at the age where they can obviously pick up and hit the Zoom link and get on here, which says to me that everyone on here has had experiences that impact them. Right? You're old enough to have had experiences that have played a major role in your life. This is the thing. You have to be aware of that, right? Your environment, like, you have to be aware of that, because your environment and your experiences can have a huge impact on you without you even knowing. Like, your environment and your experiences, like, they just naturally construct, if you're not aware of it, they start to construct the way you think. Like, where I grew up, if I wasn't privy to different experiences growing up and being around it, like, my natural growing up would have made me think a certain way when an opportunity or something was in front of me. My experiences growing up, if I didn't have the right support system and people around me to help shape my thoughts moving forward, would have controlled my thinking and may have limited some of the experiences that I had up until this point. So really understanding, like, your environment, like where you grew up, right? The different experiences you've had and how they shape you. Are they controlling your mind? Are you not getting into that space every day? Like I said, as I talk about these things, this is why I don't like planning, because as I talk about it, just naturally, they just start tying into each other. This is why you get into that space each morning. Like, you intentionally allow yourself to get into a good space each morning. Because now, guess what? If you're just hopping in the shower and going to work, like, you never gave yourself a chance to think. You never gave yourself an opportunity for space for yourself. And a lot of people, this is just me, I think a lot of people do that type of thing intentionally, because sometimes it's a scary thing to look back on your environment and your experiences. I know I personally, with the different things that happened to me in my life, like growing up where I grew up, like I'm able to enjoy it because I knew how to get myself to a good space. So when I look back to it, the environment and the experiences, it's like a very good thing because it helped me grow. Now, if I never gave myself time to think about it, right, and understand what it did for me, I can always think about what it did to me, right? So when I'm giving myself a chance to get into that space, I'm able to say, wow, even though that was going on, like it did something for me. Like my environment growing up, I wouldn't trade it for the world, like where I grew up. Like most people wouldn't want to go over to where I live a day in their life. But where I grew up, I would not trade that for the world. I wouldn't trade it for the world, right? Because I'm able to be in a space where I can say what that did for me, right? Those experiences, what that did for me. And I was able to grow from it. If I don't allow myself to get into that good space, I'll be afraid to revisit it. And it's actually doing something to me. And that to me can be very negative in terms of controlling the things I'm able to accomplish moving forward. So understanding your environment and your experiences is huge. Like we talk about this entrepreneurship, right? How can you own a business, like something outside, like, man, I want to own a business. Like, if you're not in charge of your environment experiences, understanding how they handle you, you will never be the owner of yourself. Never. You're not in control of yourself. Something's controlling your very next move. Some experience is controlling your very next move. Right? So really understanding that part, like your environment and experiences, because it can have a huge impact on you. And the way that you can accomplish the things you want is to get in control of that, right? Like you can't change what happened to you, but if you get into a good space where you're fully understanding what was going on and why and et cetera, like that's why my morning routine is so important. Like I go through a full gamut of emotions in the morning when I'm at that gym. People probably looking at me like I'm crazy. Like I got my headphones on, I'm working out. I might go through a series of laughter and I might go through a series of tears, but I'm going through this full gamut of emotions with complete understanding of what's going on. Like I'm in charge of that. Right? And I gotta be in that space, like we gotta be in that space while we're on this entrepreneur thing in terms of owning something outside of ourselves. All right. So really understanding your environment and your experiences, like that's a huge topic that I want to talk about and make sure that we understand how important it is.
All right, you got two questions. So first one is,
all right,
how important is it to step outside of your comfort zone as an entrepreneur?
So again, this is to me, this is how I view that. So we got risks, right? So it's a risk if you don't do it, and there's a risk if you do it. Again, like this is one of the things that we talk about in our leadership development, right? This is one of the things we talk about in our personal development sessions. Like, so stepping out of your comfort zone, like people come up with different things to say, and it's just this thing stuck. Okay, how do you step outside of your comfort zone? I'm gonna ask you this, like, how willing are you to work on yourself? How willing are you to handle the hard conversations for yourself? Like people can't step out of their comfort zone with one of the topics I was just about to talk about, like, because they don't even want to be accountable for their own actions. Like, how willing are you to be accountable for your own actions? Not just the good things, not when things go well, right? Like, how willing are you to be accountable for the different things that happen to you on a day-to-day basis? Like, how willing are you to go through that? How willing are you to be disciplined? Like, have you created your own standards? Like, how willing are you to make sure that you stick to your own standards? That when you're around different people, your values don't change, right? Like, how willing are you to understand what that looks like and the importance that is to you? Like, how willing are you to be fully committed to your responsibilities each and every day? Like, responsibilities is, I'm a student, I go to school. My responsibility is not to get an A in school. Like, that's not my responsibility. My responsibility when I go to school is not to get an A. Like, do you understand your responsibilities? My responsibilities when I go to school is one, it starts when I wake up in the morning. It starts with my routine. Like, that's my responsibility to any space that I enter. Get into a good space before I get to school. Give my mom a kiss before I get to school. Try to get some nutrition in my body before I get to school so I can be in a good mood. When I get to the bus stop, I'm nice to my peers. Like, that's my responsibility to school, because the goal is to make sure I'm as productive as I can. Like, being respectful to teachers, like, that's the responsibility in school. It's not to get an A. Like, we just talk about getting an A. Like, and that's the only measure. Right? My responsibility to school is to be respectful to each and everybody. Treat the custodian better than you treat the principal. Like, that's my responsibility, because my name is on the line. Like, when I walk around, more is on the line. Like, I want people to value more. Like, when they see me, that's that understand responsibility. So when I go through these different things, when I go through these different disciplines, the comfort zone doesn't even come into. Will I get nervous? I get nervous at anything. Like, I get nervous coming on this podcast and talking. You might not think that because I'm doing what I should be doing. But you don't know that my anxiety kicks in right at 7:29 and right before I got to hop on this call. That's stepping outside of my comfort zone. But because the disciplines and other things are in order, like, and I got a good support system around me that's making sure I'm good no matter what, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, which is serving people, like, I'm able to step outside of my comfort zone with no problem. Like, I'm able to deliver this to you with no problem. You just got to make sure that you're 100% sure that that's where you're supposed to be. Now, who you give that to, that's up to you. Who you commit that, that's up to you. Like, if you're the higher being in your life, that's up to you. If it's your family, that's up to you. But once you start doing what you know you're supposed to do, like, getting outside of your comfort zone is easy, right? 7:29, I'm like, oh my God, anxiety. 7:30, it's showtime. It's showtime. Click the button, click me on. It's showtime, because I know my job is to empower people. I know my job is to empower you. I know my job is to make sure I answer your question. So when you leave this chat, you got a different perspective on how to view that next opportunity to step outside your comfort zone. Because it's there for you. Like, if you have done all of the research, whatever it is, to build the skill, et cetera, and if it's just in your mind, it's there for you. Now it's time to get busy.
All right, thank you.
You said there was another question?
We'll save it. Go ahead.
All right. So what I want to end with, guys, and again, I apologize. I probably took a little bit too much of your time, but I love what I do. I love to have an opportunity to inspire, to build. I'm just committed to it, right? It's just something that I love to do. And what I want to end with today is today Wednesday? No, today is Wednesday, Monday's podcast, right? So Monday's podcast. And I touched on a few of these things earlier, right? When I was talking about my full gamut of emotions in terms of that. And we talked about this. I was on with, my brother does the podcast with me, and obviously the intern, and she's the project manager. I was, we on the road on Monday morning, up in the morning, waking up the midst of trying to get on the call. She's up, but it's to love, laugh, and live, right? The 3 L's, like what we was talking about on the podcast. And we talk about that full gamut of emotions, right? And not just emotions, but what you commit to each and every day. Like the true meaning of it, like the meaning of life, right? That true, like really, I'm not talking about just going through the day. Like I said, there's a million topics we could have got to today. Like I wanted to talk about time and value, right? I wanted to talk about, not just doing things, but really valuing those different moments. Like instead of time management, time allocate, like there's a million topics that I wanted to be able to discuss. But how are you committing to each minute every day? Again, we're talking about ownership, right? We said entrepreneurship, like that's the network. So it seems so easy to commit to something outside of ourselves. Like that's easier, right? Like, but instead, let's focus the intention back to us. Like, let's be fully committed to ourselves. Like, I want you to be fully committed to yourself. Like, honestly, like ask yourself, like I said, when I get up in the morning, I'm at the gym, like I go through that full gamut of emotions. Like I'm able to laugh in the morning. Like I'm able to look at the different things that go on throughout the course of the day and make sure that I'm grateful. So when you talk about what motivates me and what inspires me, like I turn that song on, Grateful. And if I'm at an hour and 10-minute workout, it might play the entire time. Like it's just a reminder to be grateful every day, not thankful, not just saying like I'm happy to what's going on, but being grateful means to show it through your actions. Right? So I get that good feeling, that good laugh, that good inspiration. So now when I'm around people, like I get the belly laugh, like that deep laugh. Like when I'm around, it's a real laugh. Like sometimes I can't even stop in a certain environment. I'm in a good space, so I get a great laugh. Like I get to enjoy life. When people ask me, oh, it seemed like a hard day. How are you doing? I'm great. Like, what are you doing? You're talking about you great in this chaotic environment. I'm good. Like I get to experience that great laugh, like understand that part, right? And then like when you're surrounded with good people, right? And what that space in the morning also does for me, it allows me, as hard as it is sometimes, as difficult as life gets, like the different things that, oh my God, I've been through some things over the past couple years, right? The past week and a half, like it sometimes is hard to open up to love. But you got to commit to opening up to being able to love the things around you. It's not going to be easy. Like none of this stuff I'm asking you to do, like, or imploring you, or expressing and trying to empower you to do. I didn't say it was going to be easy, right? I didn't say the work when I said start your day with dedication was going to be easy. I didn't say sticking to that routine was going to be easy. I didn't say understanding the environment and experiences and how it could impact. I didn't say that was going to be easy, right? And I did not say like being able to open up to love is easy, like, because there's so many different things going on around you. So how do I open up myself and say, I need to be ready for the different people around me to make sure I'm having a positive impact on me. Like no matter what space I'm in, when I walk out of that space, they need to know that my impact on them was a grand one. And they don't know that they don't know about the things going on around me, right? So I still got to be in a space to open up, because what that is, when I'm in those spaces, that's love. When I'm in those spaces, when I show up at these different speaking events, when I show up at these different schools, when I show up at Slade Middle School, that's love. Right? That's present. Like my presence is love. I love those young people. Like that's love. Right? That's showing up, that I'm delivering to them each and every day. When I'm giving my best in those spaces with everything, that's love. So allowing yourself to love, but then also more important, what I implore you to do. But again, guys, it's about a full commitment to these different things, because we have to understand also and be willing and getting ourselves in the space to live, right? We gotta live each day. Again, I didn't say it was going to be easy, but we gotta commit ourselves to doing our best, right? And live each day. So that coming out of the comfort zone, right? That's just risk. But if you putting yourself in the right position, coming out of the comfort zone is going to be easy, because now you've explored these more motivations, you've heard these personal development tips, and you know that taking the risk versus not taking the risk. Just imagine that. If I did not take the risk, it's worse than taking the risk. If you did not take the risk, if you never come out of your comfort zone, and this is where we talk about accountability and people can't deal with self. If you did not come out of your comfort zone, you will never know. And some people are comfortable with that. Some people rather live in that space where they don't know. They always got that excuse. I don't know. But if they take the risk and it doesn't work out, they can't deal with the what they term as failure. But this is why one of the topics I would have loved to got to is resiliency. As a part of ownership of myself, I know that trials and tribulations are going to happen each day. So I know I have to be resilient. Like, I know that I have to be resilient. So coming out of my comfort zone to do that particular thing, I know there's a chance that it might not work out the first time. But if I started with dedication and committed to the work, no matter what happened, I know I'm resilient. I know I could deal with that, and I know what to do to bounce back. And I'm okay with going back to the drawing board. And a part of that is living. A part of that is being alive. Like, that's a part of it. Like being a competitor, like being able to go after the thing you want and it doesn't work out. Like, that's living, and then getting back to it and coming back the next day and getting after it again. Like, that's living. Like, enjoy. And I enjoy it, like enjoying competition, like enjoying the work. Like, I enjoy the part of what it does for my mind of going to the gym. I don't like the lifting the weights all the time. It actually substituted one of my other loves, like my first love, which is basketball, like being able to spend that much time doing that particular thing. But what I do love is where it gets me mentally. I do love the space that it gets me into. Like, I love that competitive part of it, right? So that's living for me. Like, and so the challenge for you is to make sure that you live every day. Right? Do not neglect that. Do not neglect those 3 L's. Make sure you live each and every day.
So thank you. Kendrick, we got a couple questions for you before we wrap, because we're getting to the 8:30
okay.
time. So Melinda, would you like to ask your question, or would you like to ask it?
I can ask my question.
All right.
So my question is, how do you stay consistent in putting in the work? So you talk a lot about how you show up each and every day, but how do you make sure that you don't, I guess, burn out, or how do you make sure that you always put in 100%?
Thanks, Melinda. So with that, Melinda, comes, again, one of the topics that we talked about a couple weeks ago, like I said, I love what I do, because it's like these things just come so naturally when we talk about it. So a couple weeks ago, I talked about a second love, right? So when I'm committed to this particular thing, like being intentional about finding a second love, and what that second love is about is balance. Like, you have to have a balance with things, right? And the balance is intentional. Like, the balance is not a distraction. The balance is something intentional. Like, so you got to make sure, like, I don't care how grueling, how time consuming that particular thing is. You getting ready to go to college, your studies, you understand how time, you got to make sure you find something else intentionally to balance your time. So that's when you talk about the burnout part. Like, make sure you find something. And again, it's not a distraction. It's not something that's not intentional. Oh, I'm distracted, I can't do my work. No, it's not a distraction. It's intentional. You know, you might have to spend 15 minutes a day in your schedule to say, you know what? I just need to watch 15 minutes of my favorite show. It might be, I don't care what happens each day, during this particular hour, I will be at the gym working out. Like, but you have to find what works for you to help avoid that burnout, because you're about to enter this space where I know how focused and dedicated you are with trying to reach your goal. I know that you're willing to commit to whatever you need to, but it's important to make sure that you find the balance. Like, that balance keeps me motivated, right? The balance for me keeps me motivated. As busy as I am, like when I get home and I see the missus and I see the puppies, like, and that balance for me, when I get to see little Taurus, like that balance for me, when I get a chance, we're talking in our little group chat, like that balance, and my brother's talking about pancakes and all of this other good stuff, and we're joking, like that's balance, because those are things that I also love. You know, so I do have a good balance with that, which keeps me sharp at the thing that I love doing.
Thanks, Melinda. Next question. Yep. Trail was next. What's your question? See if he's there.
Yep. Who's that?
I don't know if he's there. Next question, 030310. Oh, Trail, you're there. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. I thought you was going to ask them.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Well, one, I want to say, appreciate you taking it.
Yeah.
I think he's gone. We'll come back to him. 03010.
Zero 310.
There's no name on that one. All right, so I'm gonna go to my question. So,
okay.
All right, so my question for you, I'm listening to another great presentation that you're giving. How do you deal with moments of self-doubt?
Moments of self-doubt, I think that's one of the biggest ones, and it comes up all the time. It's about, again, getting yourself into a space, right? And making that full commitment. Like, the only way that you're going to get over self-doubt or even have a chance at overcoming it is through the work. Like, that's the only way. Like, my idea of getting to a point for this speaking stuff or whatever it is that I'm committed to might look different for someone else. I have to know what it takes for me, right? I know I need to be in a good space for me. I'm talking about being in the ownership of myself. So understanding what I need. I know in order for me to perform at a high level, as I just mentioned, in order for me to be ready for the different people that are around me every day, I know it's essential that I get up and go to a space and work out every morning. If it comes to sport, I know how much time that I had to put in each day to be able to compete with other people. Like, I just know that. The work eliminates the doubt. It might not fully eliminate it, but this thing is about competition. Like, I understand that. In order to be in charge of myself, I also understand that this is about competition, like each and every day. But the competition, first and foremost, starts with myself. Like, I talk to a lot of kids sometimes in different groups. For this past weekend in Virginia Beach, I'm talking to our team. One of the reasons why sometimes they step out on the court and they have trouble with the opponents and not understand what to prepare for, even though we can try to give them all the message they want, is because, for instance, at their initial schools, they don't have internal competition. Like, they don't have to fight for a spot in order, they just going to start. Like, right? The competition got to be internal. The competition got to be within self first. And then understanding that, you'll understand how much work needs to be put in to get as close to eliminating the doubt as possible. You know, because that's all a mentality thing.
All right. And my last question, because we're going up against that time frame.
All right.
What's one tip that you have for everybody here that will help them eliminate distractions? Because with social media, with cell phones, it's very easy to get distracted. So what's one tip you have as you close, wrap up today.
All right. So just real quick, what I would say is I would just say go back to that journaling, like being intentional every day about the things you want to accomplish, like understanding how important your goals are. If we're talking about ownership of ourselves, like really fully understanding, because we can talk about something's important all we want. We are not ready to take that jump. But if you're really serious about your goals and accomplishing your goals, like start your day with start with the journaling. Like challenge yourself each and every day before you walk out that door. Like get everything down that you want to accomplish to have success. Remember, satisfaction at the end of the day. Along with that, be very intentional about the things that distract you. Like, if while you're in class throughout the course of the day, okay, I know I pick up my phone and check it, leave the phone in your locker. Like, you gotta be intentional about this stuff, right? You gotta be committed to it. Like, so if you know certain things, when I get home, I got a tendency to lay down, but I should be cleaning up. Like, here's the deal. When you get home, like put yourself in a position where you might not even walk in the house. You just walk right back to the back door, backyard, and go mow the lawn. Like, you got to be very intentional about the things that distract you. Like, and I'd say journal it, write it down, and make that full commitment to it.
Perfect. So before we wrap, Kendrick, would you like to tell everyone where they can find you?
Let me ask my question before we go.
Oh, go. Perfect. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
I'm sorry. I stepped in a little late, but I apologize, but I was hearing some good things, and I had a question. When it comes to us as entrepreneurs, I know
Right.
like we always have these these thousands of ideas that come through our mind throughout the day, and sometimes it is hard to decide how to narrow down and focus on what's important. What would be your advice for entrepreneurs when they're starting off their journey, whether it's business, nonprofit, whatever they want to do? What would be your advice to basically narrow down and focus on cutting out what's not important to what's important? How do they identify that?
Right. And I would say, again, this whole thing was about being an entrepreneur of your life. Do we have time, Q?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. This whole thing was about being an entrepreneur of your own life. So this is, again, what we've been talking about the entire time. So when you're talking about starting something outside of that world, because what it is every other job is structured with time. 8 to 5, 9 to 5, I got the overnight shift, whatever. Like, that part is pretty easy, dealing with the structures of time. When you're dealing with something where you got to build structure, you got to understand why you're doing it. Like, you got to understand, like, be fully invested into why you're doing it, or else it's just going to continue to collapse, or else you're just going to keep having these, you're wondering why you keep having these, I want to do that. Oh, tomorrow I want to do this. Because you haven't found a real reason as to why you want to do that particular thing. Like, it's not strong enough for you to really just say, no, I want to do this and I'm committed to this. Right? You'll have these fleeting thoughts of different things wandering through your brain because there's the hesitate of why you're doing it. Like, why are you doing it? Like, you got to be able to answer that question. And if it's not strong enough, you'll start something today. If it doesn't work out immediately, you're not willing to stick with it. Like, you can have a million thoughts in your brain, which is, hey, it's nothing wrong with being able to think that way and have different thoughts of what it is. But are you really passionate about a million different things? Are you really passionate about 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 different things? Like, that's something you need to ask yourself throughout the course of this process, especially at the beginning part, because if you don't, what will happen is you'll find yourself wasting a lot of time. Right? You'll find yourself just wasting a lot of time. And that's the big part. Like I said, we didn't get into time and value. I wish we would have, because it probably would have answered a lot of the questions that, a big chunk of what you just asked. So I'm just trying to speed through that part. But if you understand that part, time and value, and investing your time and how important it is, like, it'll help you kind of narrow down how much time you understand before I start going into that. Why do I want to do this? Like, what does that particular thing mean to me? Because that will control how much time you're willing to invest in it. Like, that will control how dedicated you are, how much work you're willing to commit to it. So really understanding that why piece in that process.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nope, no problem. No problem.
Perfect. So, as I said, Mr. I know you have it in the chat. Tell them how they can find you. Go through all your accolades and everything.
Well, just a couple of accolades, but I know I definitely appreciate you having me on. Like I said, up until 729, it was like you talk about the doubt, you talk about comfort zone, you talk about that. Like it all hits me as well, right? But I know this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I know I'm supposed to be delivering to people, right? I know that I'm supposed to be trying to inspire and empower people, and that's what I do. I'm fortunate enough to have great people around me. Like I'm very intentional about that, the people I keep there. My intern put all of the information into the group chat, the website, we got the More Motivation podcast, which we started a couple months ago. That's been really well. We started with just the text messages, which I just started sending out these random text messages. Again,
Every
at
Monday.
the gym, I'll be there early in the morning. Sometimes I'm hesitant about sending them out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what people, so I'll usually wait, start after a little after 6, then it turned into a podcast and everything. Having the opportunity to do the leadership programs that I'm a part of and that I facilitate at different parts, the keynote speaking. We're still doing the motivational speaking. If any of you, are interested in that, like definitely, like I said, the information is there. But just having an opportunity to inspire people, that's most important to me.
Perfect, perfect. So for those that are brand new, I see a lot of brand new faces. Kendrick brought a lot of brand new faces tonight. For those, so to wrap up, usually what happens at the end, if you came in late and you want to see the playback, you can see it exclusively on the Nothing But Web website. So I'm gonna share my screen real quick, just so they can find out where you can see it. So if you're not a member yet, come join the Nothing But Web Entrepreneur Network. As you can see, our membership continues to grow. It continues to grow as we go down. So if you're an entrepreneur, come in. This is the easiest way to connect with different entrepreneurs that you have. If all you have to do, if you click on watch episodes, tomorrow I'll have Kendrick's episode loaded here so you can go back and watch the playback if you came in late. Kendrick, last word before we wrap.
My last words is to laugh, love, and live. Like that's what I encourage you to do, and it's not I don't want to sound gloomy, but tomorrow isn't promised. So while you have an opportunity to be the owner of your life, make sure you're doing it the way you want it. Like make sure you're taking charge of your each and every day. And my challenge for you tomorrow is to start your day with dedication. So in tomorrow evening, I want you to self-assess and make sure that I want you to be able to check that box that you say, man, I ended this day with satisfaction, right? So let's make sure we get to work.
Perfect. So thank you. This was episode 19. Feel free to come back next Wednesday. We have episode 20. We have Leslie Gomez, owner of LMG Photography and Branding, coming in to talk about branding your business if you're interested in that. So you came in. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. Send your quick thank yous in the chat for Kendrick. Thank you. For those of you that don't know, when I ask these speakers to come on, they come out of pure love every single week. They usually come and ask me, hey, Q, how much time is it? I usually tell them, give me 10 minutes. And look at this. This is what happens. Because I know when people are passionate about topics, they will go. So again, Kendrick, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. And playback will be available tomorrow.